Tapping in.
Are we live?
I think we can find a way to ease on in.
To the current news.
For those of y'all out there that are not living in the States, I just want to say one time that we're going to try to diversify this topic a little bit. But for those of you who have been living in the States, I'm sure for a lot of you, it's been inescapable that the man who murdered George Floyd, Derek Chauvin, his trial started earlier this week. It's been televised, right? So we've been able to see witnesses take the stand. In trials in the United States, the prosecution goes first before the defense is laid out. So we've been seeing witnesses for the prosecution. Basically, most of the witnesses that we've seen have been folks that were present at the scene, who had a firsthand account. Some of the people that were recording his death with cell phones, some of the video footage that we've seen.
Sorry to cut you. They're
go ahead.
Prosecuting the detective. Just to clarify.
Yeah, they're prosecuting the detective who had his knee on George Floyd's neck for
8 minutes, 45 seconds.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. So I think just the first thing to say about it is that people don't feel, at least my understanding from the people that I've talked to who have been watching it, I don't get the sense that people feel like they're sure which way this is going to go. I think people know how they feel about the video, and I don't think we know how the trial is going to turn out. I don't think very many people would be surprised to see him exonerated, despite the video footage of what he did. And I think that says a lot about the experience of Black people and people of color in the United States, that uncertainty.
It's not just the United States, Miles. It's not just the United States, but if we're speaking if we speak specifically about the United States, the exoneration of policemen who have murdered Black people in front of ample amounts of evidence is not something that is out of the norm. You don't need to go that far back. You don't need to go that far back in order to see the many times that has happened, even if it's not even policemen, a la your George Zimmerman. You know what I mean? There's been many instances where that has been the case. Even with the case coming up now with Ahmaud Arbery, seeing how that's going to go, it's highly possible that case would not have even been realized if somebody had not gone snooping to find out that this family was related to the deputy sheriff in the town, and they had connections, and they were hiding the case, and the information was off, and things of that nature. We've seen this happen again and again. So I do not fault Black people for being for being very skeptical on how this is going to play out.
Yeah, and I think it speaks to an understanding that these systems aren't built for us. The system of justice, the system of policing, they're not built for Black people, certainly, but even for the average person. They're meant to be operated by people that have money, and they're meant to perpetuate a status quo, right? And the idea that we could all be sure that we witnessed a murder, or at least a good percentage of the country, right? Those of us who protested, those of us who took up the call of Black Lives Matter, largely as a result of his death in the first place. Those of us who were moved by that movement, for there to be such a statement made by so many people, and for us to understand that the system is working against that justice as we've asked for it, I think speaks to the experience of Black people and people of color in many spaces, right? So another thing that I wanted, did you want to add something to that?
Just to it,
Yeah.
It's just, what bothers me about people who say that, who do not see how the system works against people of color and black men in particular, is look at what the jails look like, right? Why not look at what the jails look at the prison industrial complex and see what the percentage of people in jail are for and the reasons why they're there. Look at the bail system, and uh, there's so many different structural things that are put in place that forcibly end with people of color being at the worst end of what that system is actually supposed to do. Do your Googles, do your research.
Sure. And I think watching those mechanisms makes it all the more difficult to watch, as we can see on the video this crowd of people that are observing and recording. They've been painted as an angry mob, is essentially what the defense is trying to paint them out as, right? As if the officers may have made mistakes or gone too far because of extreme circumstances, right? That this wasn't intentional. When George Floyd's history of drug use takes center stage as they try and claim that his death was a result of intoxication rather than this 9-minute assault. I think that type of blatant disregard, not only for Black life, but for our intelligence, it's insulting, right? To be told that this was anything other than him being killed by that knee on his neck. I think with those mechanisms in mind, it just makes it hard to watch. It certainly has been for me, right?
Yeah, yeah, and again, it's insulting, but the law has many times shown its ability in order to protect even some absurd theories, lack of evidence, and even a probable cause of doing something. For instance, with Breonna Taylor, the probable cause of even being able to go into that apartment is still being questioned right now. The warrant that they said that they had used is still in question, whether it's valid, whether they were allowed to do what they were supposed to do, all these different types of things. And so, it's you see them be able to say things like he died from intoxication because they've been able to get away with they've been able to get away with this type of thing all the time.
Yeah, it's frustrating, right? And to your point about absurd theories, right? So also this week, as the trial of Derek Chauvin has been going on in the United States, the UK released a report, more specifically the Commission on Race Ethnic Disparity. I will be reporting the segment as Mike Tyson. I'm the greatest.
Man, the list community is gonna cancel us, so you better get yourself together. They're gonna play this back in 2030. So insensitive old comments from Miles's way, laughing at the list community.
Word.
The irony is too much in this sentence. The irony is too much in this video. They literally predict their downfall.
That's the CNN banner as I watch, and my kid with a lisp turns to me. Yes.
Is it true?
Sorry. Yo, listen. A report was published by the Commission on Race and Ethnic Disparities in the UK, claiming that Britain is a model for race relations, and found there to be no institutional racism in the country.
Oh, that's great, dude. Can we get a gunshot for Britain?
We cannot get a gunshot for Britain's fake report on institutional racism. Matter of fact, we need a boo ad lib for this thing. And I'm gonna give it to him. For him. I say boo, 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 Britain, boo. This is bad. Okay. This is boo. Because go ahead.
I was just gonna say, if we can find an article about it, run that through. See what they were talking about.
Man,
actually, let me find it. Damn, my phone's
this
dead.
guy wants me to read.
My phone's dead. I burnt the shit out of my tongue, son.
So what?
I burnt the shit out of my tongue, son.
Yeah, that sucks, bro. I don't have an article, but I have some facts. I got some facts. Don't you worry. Don't you worry.
I run.
Shout out to the Washington Post though, because I did read an article from them when I was first checking out the story. So yeah, essentially Britain said we're a model of race relations. Other white majority countries should look at us as an example of how to elevate your minority populations, right? Um, a particular aspect of this report that caught flack, besides the fact that they were claiming that there was no institutional racism in Britain, was they said that there's a new story about the Caribbean experience, which speaks to the slave period, not only being about profit and suffering, but how culturally African people transformed themselves into a remodeled African/Britain.
Oh, so they gave us the opportunity to better ourselves, is what they say.
Apparently,
Well,
right?
thank you for Britain. Can we get one gunshot for Britain for giving us?
No, we cannot get an opportunity gunshot for Britain. They lied. You lied.
They do it every time. They do it. They get me every time.
I know the trickiest way, but try and stay with me. All right. I read that as them insinuating that slavery has been exaggerated, portrayed in too harshly a light. Right?
Yeah.
I disagree.
So you're saying that it was not an opportunity to better Black people. It was not an upskill mission. Is what you're saying slavery was.
And I frankly don't think that we wanted or needed to be transformed into some new African/Brit or African American or any of the things that we subsequently were forced to adopt and make beautiful, right? And I think that the main issue with this report, and I have not lived in Britain, but I think it's very dangerous and also absurd for the government of a country to report of Britain especially to report out that there's no institutional racism in Britain when disparities from something as recent as COVID and how communities of color were affected by it speak to institutional racism is it's a very dangerous thing to do when policy changes are what's necessary for us to move forward, right?
Yeah. I fully agree with that, and it almost shows a purposeful and blatant ignorance and mockery of the reality of what the people are going through over there. We do not need the institution that puts the rules out that we're trying to change to tell us on the status of how we're doing. We do not need that. Listen to the people that are actually experiencing and are in the country saying that. This is a fun fact for you, because even in Britain, it goes, the situation, and the social situation in Britain extends past just race, right? You have people, a study came out, it said 90% of all nurses in London cannot afford to live in London.
Wow.
Right? So then you start to talk about, starting to have a whole conversation about whether a city is even doing anything for it's actually the mass of the people that are there, right? Which is one tangent. But just kind of going back to what you said regarding about us not wanting to be moved, or better yet, we do not need Britain to come through on this great upskilling job opportunity of that they say that they did. God damn, I lost my point.
I think it's just supremely frustrating that Britain would even try to say that it as a country isn't racist, right? It feels just as dissatisfying and cringeworthy as a white dude saying, just a white person saying, I'm not racist. Ask my Black friend, right? It's just.
I lost my point because of how absurd it is. It's somewhat difficult to even have, we're sitting here with our big words and explaining the system. It's actually just it's rubbish is what it is. It's nonsense is what it is. You cannot tell me officially on a letter that there's no systemic racism in Britain. Come on now.
And I'll just cap it by saying they some of the things that they listed as more influential in outcomes were geography, family influence, socioeconomic background, culture, and religion. Had a more significant impact on life chances than the existence of racism. And I would say to that when you systematically don't allow people to live in certain places because of the color of their skin, when you break up families by over criminalizing the actions of a people because of the color of their skin, when you limit their economic opportunities by denying them jobs, right, by not investing in their communities, all of that is structural racism.
It is. And if you want to take it even a step further, Miles, the legacies of the actions that particular empire has taken are still prevalent and evident today. You say it in our intro every day, is that the violence that's happening in Chicago is inseparable from the violence that was happening to the people that came on this land before us. That's real. That's real. The people are still suffering from legacies of things that they carried from decisions that was being made in the British slave trade, right? And so you go even into African countries now and see what's happening, regardless of what you want to say. If you're going to tell me from a lofty castle, right, that was built on money stolen from the people you are telling should get over their issue, then I'm not going to listen to it and I'm not going to hear it. If you've ever been to a British museum, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You know exactly what I'm talking about if you've been to a British museum. It's unfathomable the theft that's happening there.
That is the type of truth that we give a gunshot for here on the All the Way Live podcast.
I'm glad I got one.
There it is.
Those
there
tricky Brits almost made me not get a gunshot on this episode.
They can't stop, won't stop. We will not be silenced, bro. But I think you touched on something that's so key, in that it's like we've lived in the shadow of that castle. We've lived in the shadow of all that we've built, and we've knocked at the door until there's little soft spots in the wood where it's bloodstained, and y'all are telling us there's no food in here, and we see y'all throwing salami around, right? Y'all gonna make me get on my Pac mode, right? We see y'all throwing salami around, right? And you telling us there's no food in here. So that knocking at the door turns into us amassing a crowd of people and saying they got food and they lying. We starving now. We hungry. How long do you think until we kicking that door down?
Kick in the door.
Hey, bro.
Hey, man.
Listen.
If you put one gunshot for yourself too, sir, please. And now, sir,